My family locked me in the basement and declared me dead. 20 years later, I escaped and found them celebrating. What I said silenced the room. My name is Emily Carter, and I was dead for 20 years. At least, that's what my family told the world. On the night I came back, the sky over Willow Creek was black and wet, and thunder rolled like an angry drum. I walked barefoot up the cracked driveway of the house where I grew up. My feet bled. My hair was long and tangled like seaweed. My hands shook. I smelled like dirt and old water. My knees bumped against each other because I hadn't seen real light in so long. I kept telling myself, one more step, one more breath, don't stop now. Through the front windows, I saw balloons and gold streamers. I saw a cake with candles the color of fire. I heard people laughing and clapping. Music thumped through the glass like a heartbeat. The house glowed warm and pretty the way a lie sometimes looks. A big banner hung over the living room. It said, "Congratulations, Linda." My mother's name. Under it, a smaller banner said, 20 years of peace. My mouth went dry when I read that. 20 years of peace for them. 20 years of dark for me. I pushed the door open. It wasn't locked. Warm air hit my face. The smell of sugar and vanilla slid into my throat. 100 eyes turned toward me. Plates stopped in midair. Someone dropped a fork. It rang like a tiny bell. My mother stood by the cake in a silver dress. My father stood beside her, smiling with his whole face, the way he always had when reporters took pictures. My sister, Jessica, held a glass of champagne that caught the light and threw it around the room. My brother, Tyler, had an arm around his new wife. They looked rich and clean and full. I looked like a ghost someone had dragged in from a storm. No one moved. No one breathed. Music kept playing for 2 beats and then cut off. The house fell into a strange quiet. I could hear the clock in the hall tick, tick, tick. I could hear my own heart. I could hear the rain pounding the porch behind me. Tears burned my eyes but didn't fall. I didn't want to give them that. I stepped forward. The room stepped back. My mother's mouth opened. Her lipstick looked like a cut. Her eyes went wide, but not with joy, with something colder. "Before you blow those candles," I said, and my voice was not soft and not loud but steady, "maybe don't kill this daughter twice." The room gasped like one set of lungs. The clock ticked. Somewhere, a child whispered, "Mom." And then the lights flickered. Once, twice, and every face changed at the same time, like they all remembered something they swore to forget. Cut. Now you should know how I got there. I was 15 the day my family locked me in the basement. 15 isn't supposed to be a hard age to love. You're still a kid. You like birthday cakes and sleepovers and notes passed in class. You fight with your sister over the bathroom and borrow your mom's lipstick when she isn't looking. You stay up late to dream about college brochures and a tiny apartment in a city where no one knows your last name. You think your family is forever. You think the worst thing that can happen is bad grades or a broken heart. You do not think the worst thing is your own people turning a key behind you and walking away. My mother, Linda, had a soft, careful voice when strangers were around. She smelled like lilacs and hairspray. People thought she was kind because her smile looked like kindness. My father, Mark, shook hands too long and too tight, which made folks think he was strong. Jessica, 2 years older than me, was the pretty one, the shining one, the one teachers praised. Tyler, 3 years younger, was the baby, the one who got away with trouble because he was still learning. We looked like a perfect family in photos. Our Christmas cards were a collage of teeth and sweaters and a golden retriever named Benny. But we were not perfect. We were a house full of secrets that never got fresh air. The first sign was small. It was how Mom flinched when I asked questions about money. Dad's company had weathered a storm, he said. There was a whisper of debt, a rumor of a deal, a thing that might fix everything if we played it right. I didn't know what playing it right meant. I just knew bills piled in a drawer that was always closed, and Dad stayed up late with a calculator that hissed like a snake when he pressed the buttons too fast. The second sign was a look Jessica gave me when I won the county art prize. It was a flat look, like I'd taken something from her. The prize came with a small scholarship, and my name got printed in the paper. The photo showed me holding a clay bowl I had made. It was not perfect. The lip was crooked, but it was mine. The morning the paper arrived, Mom put it on the counter and said, "That's nice, honey," in a voice that tasted like dust. Dad said, "Good publicity never hurts." Jessica said, "Nothing." She took the paper to her room and didn't bring it back. Later, I found it under her bed with my face ripped in half. The third sign was loud. It was the night Dad said, "We can't afford a mistake, not even one." And Mom said, "It has to look real." And Jessica said, "I'll do it if I have to." And Tyler cried into a pillow so I wouldn't hear. I heard. The basement in our house wasn't scary at first. It was bright enough with a pull chain light and shelves of peaches we'd canned the summer before. There was a washer and dryer and a sink where Mom had once let me paint. It smelled like soap and fruit and damp wood. It was a place people went for 5 minutes and then came back upstairs, easy as breathing. The day they told me to go down there, the sky was as blue as a bruise. "We need help with the shelves." Mom said, "Sweet as honey. Those jars are heavy." I went down with her. Dad followed. Jessica, Tyler, the whole family together, which felt like a good thing until it didn't. Dad said, "Stand back while I fix the hinge." He smiled. He always smiled. "Won't take long." I stepped back. He closed the door. Metal shrieked. A new lock slid home. I heard 4 clicks. Not 1, 4. "Dad." I laughed because my brain couldn't make another shape. "This isn't funny." "Emily," Mom said from the other side, and now her voice was not soft at all. It was hard and tired and thin. "Don't shout. You'll waste your voice." "Mom." My throat tightened. "What are you doing?" "It won't be forever," she said. "It just has to look right." "What has to look right?" "Everything," she said. Jessica's voice cut in. "Stop acting surprised. You always act like you're the only one with feelings." "What does that even mean?" My hands shook. I pulled at the doorknob. It didn't move. It felt like the door had grown roots. Dad said, "Emily, we need time to fix this mess. People are watching. You understand? We can't have eyes on us right now. It's complicated." He said it like I was a little kid who couldn't do math. "Just be calm." "Let me out," I whispered. "Please." Silence. Then Tyler, small and trembling, pressed his lips to the crack and said, "I'm sorry." His breath smelled like peanut butter. "Tyler." Footsteps walked away. The house grew light and far. The lock stopped talking to me. I pulled. I pounded. I screamed. My voice hit the boards and died there. The pull chain light shook like a nervous finger. The peaches sat on the shelves and did not care. Benny scratched once at the door and whined. And I thought, my dog loves me more than my mother does. And that felt like a very bad thing to know. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time started to slide around like oil. When Dad came back, he brought a small plate of food, a peanut butter sandwich, and 2 apple slices. He slid them through the cat door that had never had a cat. "There," he said, like he had done a kind thing. "See, we won't forget you." "Open the door," I said. My voice had gone low and flat. "Open it now." He didn't. "Don't make this harder," he said. and walked away. That first night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the cool concrete and hugged my knees and sang a song I remembered from second grade because it was the only thing that didn't sound like a scream. I counted the peaches. I made up names for the spiders. I tried to tell myself this was a joke that had gone on too long, and morning would fix it, and Mom would open the door with coffee and a laugh. Morning came. The door did not open. On day 2, Mom slid down a toothbrush and a roll of toilet paper. She did not say, "I love you." She said, "Don't be dramatic. Eat." On day 3, Jessica slid down a pillowcase with a sweater inside it. My sweater, blue with white stripes. It smelled like home. "You always wanted to be special," she said. "Now you are." Then she laughed, and her laugh sounded like a plate breaking. On day 4, Dad came with a radio. He turned it on loud and tuned it to the news. The reporter's voice was calm and sure. "Police are still searching for local teen Emily Carter," the voice said. "Last seen near Maple and 5th after school on Friday. Family is pleading for help." Dad turned the volume up. "Hear that?" he said, like he was proud. "We're doing it right." He looked at the lock. He looked at me through the cat door, like I was a spilled drink to mop up. "Don't worry," he added, as if that were possible. "It'll be over soon." That night, I learned something about fear. Fear is not always loud. Sometimes it is a quiet room with one chair in it. Sometimes it is the sound of your father whistling while he cooks as if nothing is wrong. I tried everything. I tried banging a jar against the pipe until my hands bled. I tried pulling the hinge pins with a butter knife. I tried sliding a note under the door. "My name is Emily. I am in here. Please help." It hit the door and curled back like a dead leaf. I tried praying. I said, "God, if you see me, please send someone." I said it again and again. I didn't feel anything. I said it anyway. A week in, the basement changed. The peaches began to sour. The light bulb hummed like a bee trapped in a jar. My skin itched from the damp. My hair stuck to my neck. My thoughts started to do strange things, like jumping ahead and behind. I began to speak to the spider behind the water heater. I called her Martha. She did not answer, but she listened better than my family did. One afternoon, I heard a truck outside. Men's voices. Boots on the porch. I held my breath. The door opened. The outer door, upstairs, not mine, and a voice called, "Mrs. Carter, we'll start in the morning. Cement's coming at 6. My chest went cold. Cement. For what? That night, Mom came to the door and slid down a paper. It was a flyer. "My daughter is missing." It said in big black letters. It had my school photo on it. Clean hair, small smile, a sweater that did not smell like a basement. "We're doing everything," Mom said. "Don't be selfish." Selfish. I choked. "If this works," she said, and her voice got soft the way it did when she wanted something, "we can pay everything off. We can finally breathe. You want us to breathe, don't you?" A strange calm came over me. It was not peace. It was the kind of calm a storm has before it breaks a tree. "So I die," I said, "so you can breathe." "You don't die," she snapped, and the mask fell for a second. "You wait." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." The next morning, men came. I heard the thump of bags, the scrape of trowels, the soft splash of wet gray. Something heavy slid across the floor above me. A cabinet, a bookcase. Men grunted. The house groaned like it was learning a new shape. I stood at the bottom of the stairs and put my hand on the door and felt cold through wood. The cat door went dark. The air tasted like chalk. I coughed. Dust fell like gray snow. I thought, they are burying me inside my own home. "Dad." I screamed. "Dad." He did not answer. Benny barked, and then went quiet like someone had led him away with a biscuit and a lie. Hours later, the men left. Mom hummed. Jessica practiced piano. Tyler, small as a secret, sat with his back to the door and drew dinosaurs on a notepad and whispered, "Sorry, sorry, sorry," until he fell asleep there. I put my fingers to the crack and felt his warmth and cried without sound. Days changed shape. Hunger turned from a shout to a slow, steady push. I learned how many crackers I needed to not pass out. I learned which pipe knocked when the washer ran. I learned to sleep sitting up when the floor felt too cold to lie down. I learned the schedule of people who were not supposed to know I was there. The mailman's boots were heavy at 11:30. The neighbor's lawnmower sang on Saturdays. A boy rode by on a skateboard at 4. I counted his passes and turned them into prayers. Kindness is strange. It can grow in dark places if you let it. I began to say thank you to the water every time I filled the cup. I patted the wall and said, "You have held me." I fed crumbs to a mouse and named him Scout. I told myself stories about a girl who could run as fast as the wind and jump as high as the roof and never get tired. I made a promise. If I ever saw the sky again, I would love every sunrise like it was a gift. I would never roll my eyes at small things. I would be softer than my mother's lipstick and stronger than my father's handshake. I would never lock a door on anyone. Then the day came when the TV upstairs said my name in a new way. Dad turned it up. Footage of our house flashed on the screen. Police lights washed everything blue and red. A reporter stood on our lawn. Her voice was low, like the start of a prayer. "Tonight, a sad update," she said. "After days of searching, police say there is evidence suggesting local teen Emily Carter may be dead. This is now a recovery mission." I pressed my ear to the wall. The reporter kept talking. She said words like memorial, closure, and moving forward. She said, "The family has asked for privacy as they grieve." The living room filled with people. I could hear them. Soft voices. Soft weeping. Someone said, "She was an angel." Someone said, "At least they can rest now." Someone else said, "Such a tragedy. So young." In the middle of the soft voices, I heard my mother very clear. "Thank you for coming," she said, as if we were at a party. "It means so much. We'll be okay. We're strong." She laughed her light little laugh that always made people smile. The room sighed with love for her. I could not move. I stood there like my feet had grown into the floor. I put my hand on the door, then my forehead, then my whole body, like I could push through wood with my bones. Downstairs, I was alive. Upstairs, I was dead. I opened my mouth to scream, but the scream wouldn't come. It was too big. It sat in my chest like a stone. Then the reporter's voice changed. Live breaking news, and my name came again, sharper, cutting the room like glass. "We have confirmation," she said. "The family of Emily Carter has announced a private memorial service will be held Friday. A scholarship fund in her name will be launched by her parents, Linda and Mark Carter. A memorial, a scholarship. My life turned into a story that looked good in a brochure. Something in me snapped. I ran at the door. I hit it with my shoulder. Pain exploded like lightning. I hit it again and again. The jars rattled. The light swung. Dust fell. I hit it until my skin burned and my breath tore and my head rang. On the other side of the door, chairs scraped back. A hush fell. Then my father's footsteps came slow and heavy, like a judge walking to a bench. He stopped on the other side. "Emily," he said softly, like we were in church. "Don't do that." I pressed my cheek to the wood. "Open it, Dad. Please. Please. I'll be quiet. I'll disappear. He sighed. It sounded tired and old. "You already did," he said. Dad. The bolt slid. Not open. Closed. A second lock I hadn't heard before ground into place. The metal groaned like it was sad for me. Then I heard a sound I will never forget, the slosh and thump of a bag of cement being set down right against the door. Dad. I whispered. What are you doing? Making sure, he said. Sure of what? That nothing ruins this, my mother answered from the hall, bright and clear. Not even you. The first trowel of wet cement spread across the bottom seam with a cold hiss. And that was when I knew my family wasn't just pretending I was dead. They were making it true. The sound of cement spread like thunder in my bones. Every scrape of the trowel sounded like the end of my life. The air grew thick. My lungs felt small. The smell, wet, heavy, gray, filled every breath I tried to take. I slammed my fists on the door until my skin tore, but whoever they were, they never came close enough. I only caught muffled words. Foundation, old, unsafe, then silence again. I realized they were renovating. Maybe the house was being sold. Maybe someone else would live above me now. People who didn't even know there was a girl buried below. My body trembled with weak laughter. They'll sell it like nothing ever happened. But I wasn't gone yet. I waited. I kept scratching that crack. Little by little, I pulled away the hardened edges, one flake at a time. My fingers bled every day. I used a broken piece of jar as a tool. For weeks, I dug. For months. Until one day, sunlight, a thin, perfect line of gold slid through the wall and hit my face. I hadn't seen it in 20 years, but I knew exactly what it was. I pressed my whole body against it, crying, laughing, shaking. Then I used the glass again, harder this time, until the hole grew big enough for my hand. Then my arm. Then my shoulder. It took 2 more days to make it wide enough for me to crawl through. When I pushed my body out, the smell of grass and dirt hit me. The world was louder than I remembered. I blinked into the light until my eyes burned. And then I realized where I was. Not behind my house, but in the backyard, under a layer of rotted boards and leaves. The garage was new, but the air smelled the same, like lilacs and lies. I staggered to my feet. My legs almost gave out. I was thin, wild-looking, covered in scars. The world felt tilted. I saw the house, bigger, freshly painted, a porch added. Cars parked outside. A familiar laugh floated through the open window. I crept closer, and then I saw them. All of them. Mom, Dad, Jessica, even Tyler, grown now, gray in his hair. They were gathered around a table, glasses of wine, a banner on the wall. Congratulations, MOM and Dad, 20 years of peace. I stood there in the rain, staring through the glass, my heart pounding. They looked happy. They looked free. They looked proud. My hand tightened on the doorknob. I twisted it slowly. It opened. Warm air rushed out, carrying laughter, cake, and the smell of everything I'd lost. My mother turned first. The glass fell from her hand. My voice was dry, cracked, but steady. Before you cut that cake, I said, stepping inside, maybe don't celebrate your peace while your ghost still breathes. Every face froze. Every breath stopped. And then the lights flickered. The lights went out completely. 1 second, the room was gold and laughter. The next, everything was swallowed by black. I heard someone gasp. A fork dropped. My mother whispered my name, but not the way a mother should. Not with love, with fear. Emily. I took another step forward. My bare feet pressed into the polished floor, leaving tiny wet marks from the rain. I could feel all of them staring at me in the dark. Their silence was louder than thunder. When the light flickered back on, I was standing right in front of the cake. 20 candles, all lit, all burning steady. My reflection danced in the silver knife lying beside it. My father was the first to move. He didn't rush to hug me. He didn't fall to his knees and cry. He just stood there, pale, expressionless, calculating. My sister Jessica pressed herself against the wall. "This isn't real," she whispered. "You're not real." "Oh, I'm real," I said softly, my voice shaking and calm at the same time. "More real than the peace you're celebrating." Tyler, grown now, taller, older, but with the same trembling eyes, took one step forward. "Emily," he whispered, voice cracking, You can't be dead," I said, smiling without warmth. "That's what you all told the world, isn't it?" My mother's lips trembled. "You don't understand." "I don't understand." My laugh came out sharp. It sounded strange, like it had been waiting 20 years to escape. "You buried me alive, Mom. You poured cement over my door and called it closure. You told everyone I was gone. You spent my insurance money on your new life." Her face twitched. "We didn't have a choice." That sentence cracked something deep inside me. "No choice." I repeated, "There's always a choice. You could have chosen to love me. You could have chosen to fight for me. Instead, you locked me away because I was inconvenient to your reputation." No one spoke. I reached for one of the candles and blew it out slowly. One for each year you lived like nothing happened. Then another, and another. By the fifth one, Jessica screamed, "Stop it! Stop it! You're not supposed to be here." "Oh, I'm here," I said, stepping closer. "And I have something to say before I disappear again." The wind outside howled. The house creaked. The whole room felt smaller, like the walls were remembering what they'd done. Before I came in, I continued. "I stood outside for a long time. I watched you laugh. I watched you dance. I thought about how many birthdays passed while I was counting cracks in the basement wall. How many Thanksgivings you had while I drank rainwater. How many times you said my name like it was a burden." Jessica sobbed. My mother hid behind her shaking hands. My father still hadn't moved. "You know the funny thing?" I said, "I don't even hate you anymore. 20 years alone teaches you something. It teaches you that hatred only keeps you chained to what broke you. And I'm done being chained." Then I turned to Tyler. He was crying now, silent tears sliding down his face. "You were the only one who tried," I whispered. "You fed me through the vent. You talked to me when no one else would. I never blamed you." He dropped to his knees, sobbing. "I was a coward." I knelt beside him, touched his shoulder, and for the first time since that night, I let myself feel something close to peace. "You were a child," I said. "I forgive you." My father's jaw tightened. "You shouldn't have come back." Those words felt like a slap. I turned to him. "What did you say?" He stepped forward, his voice rising for the first time. "You think you're some kind of victim? We lost everything because of you. The debts, the press, the gossip. Your disappearance saved us. You think you can just walk in here and ruin it." My mother grabbed his arm. "Mark." He yanked free. "No, she needs to hear it." I stared at him. "Saved you? You didn't save anyone, Dad. You sold your soul for comfort." He sneered. "We made a life." On my grave, I said quietly. The tension snapped like glass. Jessica sobbed louder. My mother clutched her chest. Tyler looked between us, shaking. I looked at all of them, the perfect family who once smiled for Christmas cards, and realized something. They weren't strong. They weren't untouchable. They were terrified. "Don't worry," I said finally. "I didn't come back to kill you. That would be too easy." I turned and walked toward the door. My mother's voice followed, trembling. "Emily, please, what are you going to do?" I looked back at her, my hand on the doorknob. "Tell the truth," I said, "and this time I won't be the one locked away." Then I stepped out into the storm. The wind hit me like freedom. Rain slid down my face, washing 20 years of dust from my skin. Every drop felt like a small mercy. I walked barefoot down the driveway, past the cars, past the garden that used to be mine. The lilac bush I'd planted with my mom was still there, bigger now. I plucked one flower. The smell dragged me backward and forward all at once. I could have kept walking forever, but I stopped at the gate because I heard something, my name, Emily, Tyler's voice. He ran after me, clutching his coat. He stopped a few feet away, panting, drenched. "Please," he said, "let me help you." I stared at him. "Help me." He nodded. "I'll tell the truth. Everything. I should have done it years ago." I believed him because I saw the guilt carved into his face like a wound that never healed. I smiled faintly, then started talking. The next day, the story broke. Missing teen found alive after 20 years, family under investigation. The headlines exploded. Cameras surrounded the house. Reporters shouted questions. Police vans came and went. My parents' smiles finally cracked for the world to see. They denied everything at first, said I was delusional, said I'd been kidnapped and returned just to destroy them. But then the basement was dug up, the old door found, the layer of cement, the lock. Evidence doesn't lie. Jessica was the first to leave the house. She disappeared into another city. My mother was arrested a week later. My father tried to run, but he didn't get far. When the officers came for them, I didn't watch. I was standing in the backyard, touching the cracked wall where the sunlight had first broken through. That little hole had been my miracle. I could have stayed bitter. I could have demanded they suffer. But what's worse than losing your power over the person you buried? What's worse than watching the world finally believe her instead of you? Forgiveness wasn't for them. It was for me. Still, I had one last thing to say. At the hearing, I stood before them in court. They looked smaller now. My father's hair was white. My mother's hands shook. Jessica couldn't even lift her eyes. The judge asked if I had anything to say. I took a deep breath. The room was silent. For 20 years, I begged for mercy in the dark. I begged to be seen, to be loved, to be remembered. But all I learned was that love without kindness is poison. And mercy isn't something you wait for. It's something you give yourself. I turned to them. You locked me away to protect your image. But look at you now. The whole world sees who you really are. That's your punishment. Not prison. Not death. Just the truth. The judge nodded. The gavel came down. Case closed. Months later, I visited the old house one last time. It was empty now. The walls stripped, the floors bare. I walked down into the basement. It smelled different, cleaner, brighter. I touched the wall that had once trapped me and whispered, "I'm free." Then I walked back into the sunlight. And this time, when the light hit my face, I didn't flinch. I smiled because the girl who was buried was gone. And the woman who survived, she was finally alive. You'd think escaping that house would have been the end of the nightmare. But I learned something. When people bury you alive, they don't stop digging just because you climb out. 4 months after the trial, my face was everywhere. News, magazines, podcasts. People whispered the word miracle, like I had come back from the dead. They didn't understand. Coming back isn't the same as coming home. The world I left behind had turned into a place I didn't recognize. Cars looked sharper. Phones had no buttons. My childhood street now had coffee shops instead of corner stores. Even the sky felt different, like it had forgotten me too. The government set me up with therapy, housing, and a counselor who spoke softly and used phrases like readjustment period. She said, "You'll need time to feel safe again." Safe. The word felt too small for what I'd lost. I had no job, no ID, no friends. I was a woman in her 30s with the voice of a 15-year-old echoing inside her. The girl who used to dream of college now woke up shaking at the sound of footsteps in hallways. Still, I tried. I rented a small apartment on the edge of town. The walls were painted yellow, bright and gentle. For the first few weeks, I slept on the floor because beds felt too soft, too much like the mattress I had in the basement before it rotted away. I bought a plant. I named it Martha, after the spider that once kept me company. I watered her every morning and whispered, "We made it." But sometimes at night, I still heard it, the sound of cement scraping wood. And in the dark, I would see my mother's face, calm and cold, saying, "You'll thank us one day." That's what abusers do. They make you think pain is love. 2 months after the trial, I received a letter. No return address. Just my name, Emily Carter, in handwriting that made my stomach twist. I sat staring at it for hours before I opened it. Inside was a single line. "We did what we had to do. You'll never understand." No signature, but I knew the handwriting. My mother's. My fingers trembled so badly I dropped the letter into my coffee. The ink bled across the paper, but the words stayed visible, as if they refused to die. I called the police. They said it was probably sent before the arrest, before she was officially cut off from communication. But something about that didn't sit right. A week later, I got another one. This time, it said, "Your story isn't over." No envelope this time, just a folded paper shoved under my apartment door in the middle of the night. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I started noticing shadows that didn't belong, footsteps in the hall when no one was there. Once I caught a glimpse of someone standing across the street, tall, broad shoulders, watching me. When I blinked, he was gone. I told myself it was trauma, that I was just seeing ghosts of my past, until I found the dead lilac branch on my windowsill. Wrapped in it was a small silver charm, the same one that used to hang on my mother's bracelet, the one I'd seen her wear the day they locked me away. My breath caught. I stared at it for a long time. Someone had been inside my apartment. I went to the police again. They promised to investigate. They said they'd station a patrol car nearby for a few nights. But I knew better than to rely on other people to save me. I started locking every window, sleeping with a flashlight in my hand. I bought a cheap security camera from the store and placed it near the door. That night, I turned it on, sat on the floor, and whispered a prayer. Not for safety, but for clarity. Around 2:37 a.m., the motion alert beeped. I froze. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat. I opened the app. The footage showed a shadow outside my door, someone standing still for almost 2 minutes. Then, slowly, a hand reached up and slipped something through the gap under the door. I couldn't see the face, but I knew the posture. Tyler, my brother. The next morning, I found a note on the floor. "Please don't hate me. They're not the only ones who kept secrets." I found him 2 days later, sitting in the park near the lake. His hair had turned gray around the edges, and he looked older than he should have. He stood when he saw me, guilt heavy in his eyes. "Emily, what secrets?" I asked. My voice came out harder than I meant. He swallowed. "I didn't just feed you. I helped them plan it." I felt the ground tilt. "What?" "They told me it was temporary," he said quickly, tears already forming, "that it was to protect the family. They said you'd be safe down there, that they'd let you out when things calmed down." I believed them. I was 10, and I didn't know what forever meant. He was crying now, shoulders shaking. "I thought I was saving us," he whispered. And when I tried to tell the truth years later, Dad said he couldn't finish. I stood there, every muscle in my body tight. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to pull him into a hug and never let go. Finally, I said, "You were a child. They used you." He nodded slowly. "I want to make it right." I looked at him for a long time. "Then help me end this. For real." The next few weeks blurred. Tyler and I worked together quietly. He still had access to the family's old documents, the insurance papers, the fake police reports, the evidence they'd hidden before my discovery. Every folder was a reminder of how far my parents were willing to go to erase me. Forged signatures, false witnesses, even a life insurance policy I'd never known existed, one worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. I asked Tyler why they'd never cashed it out completely. He hesitated. They did something else with it. Something bigger. "What do you mean?" He handed me a file. Inside was a deed to a property outside town. A cabin, registered under a false name. Bought the same year they locked me away. That was when I realized it wasn't just about money. It was about control. That cabin might hold everything they never wanted the world to see. A week later, I went there. It sat deep in the woods, hidden behind old oak trees. The kind of place no one would find unless they were looking for it. The door creaked open. The air smelled of dust and old secrets. Inside were boxes, neatly labeled, taxes, letters, documents. I started opening them one by one. Then I found it, a tape recorder, old, covered in dust. When I pressed play, static filled the room. Then a voice, my father's, cold and calm. "She knows too much. If the investigation digs deeper, we'll lose everything. This is the only way." My heart stopped. My mother's voice followed. "Mark, I can't." "You can. You have to. It's her or us." The tape clicked off. I stood there shaking, the world spinning around me. That was the proof. The truth. I didn't feel anger. I felt something deeper, a strange, heavy peace. Because finally, I wasn't the crazy one. I wasn't the ghost. I was the evidence they could never bury again. When I got back to town, I didn't go to the police right away. I went home, sat on the floor, and stared at the lilac flower I'd saved from the night I escaped. It had dried, brittle and pale, but it was still beautiful. That's when I realized revenge wasn't about watching them suffer. Revenge was about living better than they ever imagined I could. The next morning, I handed the tape to the authorities. Within hours, it was everywhere, news, court, social media. The whole country heard their voices. And just like that, the people who buried me were finally buried by their own words. But that night, as I sat by the window, watching the rain fall, I couldn't shake one thought. Someone had broken into my apartment again. The lilac charm was gone. And on the glass, written in fog, were 3 words. "It's not over." The 3 words on my window stayed there even after the fog faded. "It's not over." My first instinct was to scream, but the sound caught in my throat like a fishhook. I turned every lock twice, checked every corner of the apartment, even the closets I never used. Empty, silent, but I could feel it. Someone had been here. This wasn't just paranoia anymore. Someone was playing a game. I sat on the floor, knees tucked to my chest, staring at the words until the glass cleared. My heart thudded like a drum. Whoever wrote, it had been close enough to touch me while I slept. And then it hit me. The handwriting. It wasn't my mother's. It wasn't Tyler's. It was Jessica's. The next morning, I went straight to the police. They promised to add patrols, but their faces said what their mouths didn't. "We can't protect you from everything." I didn't tell Tyler. Not yet. Instead, I started moving like a ghost. Quiet, watching, tracking. I found a small coffee shop with a clear view of the courthouse. Every day after the hearings, Jessica came out alone, sunglasses on, moving fast. She never came near me. But sometimes when she thought no one was looking, she'd glance over her shoulder. That's how I knew. She wasn't done. 2 weeks later, the cabin burned down. I saw it on the news first, a mysterious fire at an abandoned property. The same cabin where I'd found the tape. The police said it was arson. No suspects. They didn't have to say her name. I already knew who it was. Jessica. If the tape hadn't already been handed over to the authorities, my parents would have walked free. She'd risked everything to destroy what was left of the evidence. But why? She had no money left to lose. No reputation left to protect. Then I remembered the insurance policy, the secret accounts, the scholarship fund my mother had set up in Jessica's name years before. Jessica hadn't just been the golden child. She'd been the co-conspirator. That night, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Silence. Then a voice, low and sharp. You think this is over? You're not the only one who survived the basement. Click. The line went dead. I stared at my phone. My palms were slick. The words rang in my head. You're not the only one who survived the basement. What did that mean? I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table, replaying the voice over and over in my head. It had been disguised, deeper than Jessica's usual tone, but there was a tremor at the end, a crack in the sound. The same crack she used to have when she was lying to our parents. If she'd been down there too, even once, maybe she thought I'd tell the world her part in it. Maybe she was afraid of losing everything she'd clawed back for herself. Or maybe she was just like them. 2 days later, I got an envelope. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. It was of me, taken the night before through my apartment window. On the back, written in black marker. One last chance. Stop talking. My hands shook as I held it. It wasn't just a threat. It was a promise. I decided to flip the game. If Jessica wanted me scared, she'd get something else instead. I called a lawyer, a woman named Rachel who specialized in high-profile abuse cases. She was blunt, smart, and had a voice like steel. I handed her every document Tyler and I had collected, including the insurance papers that tied Jessica to the cover-up. Rachel looked at me for a long moment. You understand what happens if we move forward. This will ruin her completely. I met her eyes. She already ruined me. The next day, subpoenas went out. Jessica was called to testify. I didn't attend the first hearing. I sat at home, instead, watching the rain. Around noon, Tyler came by, soaked and pale. She's furious, he said. You should have seen her in court. She was. He stopped when he saw my face. What is it? I handed him the photograph. His hands trembled. She's threatening you? I nodded. She's lost it, he muttered. Emily, she's not going to stop. Not unless. Unless what? I asked. He looked up at me, his eyes dark. Unless you make her stop. That night, I got another note under my door. This time it said, meet me at the old playground. Midnight. Come alone. Or everyone finds out what you did. What I did. What could she possibly mean? I sat there, staring at the note, my heart pounding. I didn't know if it was a trap or a confession or both. But I knew one thing. If I didn't go, she'd keep coming. If I went, something would break, one way or another. At 11:58 p.m., I stood at the edge of the playground where Jessica and I used to play as kids. The swings creaked in the wind. The slide was rusty. The night smelled like rain and old wood chips. A shadow moved near the swings. Jessica stepped out. Her hair was longer now, streaked with blonde. She wore a black coat. In her hand was a small envelope. You came, she said softly. I stayed still. You told me to. She smiled, a strange, sad smile. I knew you would. What do you want, Jessica? She walked closer, stopped a few feet away. You think you're the only victim here, but you don't know the whole story. You never did. What story? She held up the envelope. Everything. The real reason they locked you up. The real reason I stayed. My chest tightened. Then tell me. She tilted her head. Not here. Not yet. But I'll give you a choice. Drop the case, or I open this, and everyone learns what you've been hiding. I frowned. I don't have anything to hide. Her smile widened. Don't you? The wind howled through the empty playground. Tell me what's in it. I demanded. She stepped closer, eyes glinting. Come to the cabin ruins tomorrow. Alone. I'll show you. And then, before I could move, she turned and melted into the darkness, the envelope tucked under her arm. I stood there in the empty playground, rain sliding down my face, my heart hammering. Jessica had set the house on fire. She'd followed me. She'd left threats. And now she claimed she had a secret about me. But what could it be? I stared at the swings swaying in the wind, and for the first time since escaping the basement, I felt real fear. Not of dying, not of being buried, but of the possibility that Jessica might be right, that there was still something I didn't know about that night. The next morning, I woke before dawn. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds. I hadn't slept. My mind kept looping Jessica's words over and over. You're not the only one who survived the basement. I didn't know if she was trying to scare me or if there was truth hiding behind the madness. But there was only one way to find out. I packed a small bag, flashlight, recorder, phone, and a kitchen knife. Not because I wanted to use it, but because the last time I trusted my family, I nearly died for it. By the time I reached the woods, the morning light had barely broken through. The trees stood like black pillars. Fog crawled along the ground. I could hear my own footsteps crunching dead leaves, echoing like whispers of the past. When I reached the ruins of the cabin, the air smelled like burnt wood and rain. Charred boards jutted from the ground like broken ribs. Everything was silent, too silent. Then I saw her. Jessica stood in the middle of the clearing, her black coat fluttering slightly in the wind. Her hair was wild, wet with dew. Her hands were empty, no envelope in sight. You came, she said softly. I kept my distance. You said you had answers. Her eyes glimmered. Oh, I do. I waited. She laughed quietly, the kind of laugh that came from pain, not joy. You always thought they locked you up because of money, didn't you? Because of Dad's debts, the reputation, the insurance. I frowned. Wasn't that it? Jessica shook her head. No, it started because of him. Who? Dad, she whispered. You saw something you weren't supposed to see. I felt my stomach twist. What are you talking about? She looked away, then back at me, eyes wet. You were 15, M. You came downstairs that night when he thought everyone was asleep. You saw him in the office with the gun and the envelope of cash. Do you remember? I blinked. For a second, the memory flashed, Dad's office light under the door, his raised voice on the phone. I'd peeked in because I'd heard him say my name. But before I could step closer, he'd seen me. He'd smiled, told me to go to bed. I hadn't thought about that night in years. Jessica stepped closer. He'd been taking bribes, laundering money for a company that was being investigated. If you talked, everything would have fallen apart. He told Mom that you had to disappear, or we'd all go down with him. I stared at her. You're lying. She shook her head. You think I wanted this? You think I slept at night, hearing you scream from below? He threatened to hurt me too if I told anyone. So I stayed quiet. I became part of it. I felt dizzy. And now, her eyes darkened. Now I can't live with it anymore. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small black envelope. Everything's in here. The records, the names, the account numbers. Proof that he started it all. Then give it to the police. She smiled sadly. You still don't get it, do you? You can't bury one monster without digging up another. Before I could respond, there was movement in the trees. A shadow stepped out. My heart stopped. Dad. He looked older, weaker, but his eyes were the same, sharp and cold. He was supposed to be in prison, but here he was standing in the clearing with mud on his shoes and fury in his gaze. Hello, girls, he said quietly. Family reunion, is it? Jessica stiffened. How did you? He smiled. You never were good at keeping secrets, Jess. You should have known I'd find you. My throat tightened. You escaped. He ignored me, stepping closer. You both ruined everything. I built this family. I built our name. And you, he pointed at me, you turned it into a circus. Jessica stepped between us. She didn't ruin anything. You did. He laughed, low and bitter. You think anyone will believe your story now? After what you've done? After what you helped me do? Jessica's hands shook. I'm done protecting you. She opened the envelope. Papers fluttered out, black and white evidence. Names, bank records, wire transfers. Dad lunged. The papers scattered into the wind. I screamed. Jessica stumbled backward. My father grabbed her wrist. His face twisted with rage. You ungrateful. Something snapped in me. I ran forward and shoved him with all the strength I had left. He hit the ground, hard, the knife from my bag clattering beside him. He grabbed it before I could. Jessica yelled, Emily, run! But I didn't. I couldn't leave her again. He swung the knife toward me. I dodged, falling onto the wet ground. He rose over me, his shadow blotting out the light. You should have stayed dead, he hissed. Then, a sound. A single, deafening crack. He froze. His eyes widened. Jessica stood behind him, holding my dropped flashlight like a weapon. Blood ran down his temple where she'd struck him. He staggered, then collapsed onto the ground. The forest went quiet again. Only the wind moved. Jessica dropped the flashlight. Her hands trembled. He's still breathing, she whispered. I stared at him, the man who had stolen my childhood, who'd made my name a headline and my life a prison. I could have ended it right there, but I didn't. Instead, I picked up one of the papers from the mud, his signature, clear as day, linking him to everything. This is enough, I said softly. Let him live knowing the whole world will know what he did. Jessica looked at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, I nodded. So, am I? By sunrise, the police were there. They took him away, unconscious but alive. The evidence we recovered was enough to seal his fate for good. This time, there would be no escape. Jessica turned herself in, too. She confessed to everything, the lies, the cover-up, the threats. She said she didn't want freedom anymore, just peace. As for me, I stood at the edge of the woods, watching the sun rise through the fog. The first true sunrise I'd seen since I was 15. For the first time in 20 years, I felt like the world was starting over with me. People asked later if I forgave them. The truth? Forgiveness isn't about saying it's okay. It's about saying it's over. And it finally was. Months passed. My mother died in prison, quietly, without fanfare. Jessica served time, then disappeared after her release. I never saw her again. Sometimes I still dream about the basement, the dripping pipe, the spider named Martha, the faint echo of my own voice begging to be let out. But then I wake up and I'm home. There's sunlight on my walls, the smell of coffee in the air, and no locked doors between me and the world. Every morning, I whisper the same words before I start my day. I am not what they did to me. I am what I chose to become after. And that's how my story ends, not with revenge, not with hate, but with survival. Because sometimes the loudest revenge isn't screaming your pain. It's living so loudly that even your ghosts have to listen.